Hi there. Thanks for tuning in to the Frisco Chamber Candidate Forum. As you know, the Chamber has taken a much stronger position on governmental affairs issues and advocacy, and we're glad you're turning in. Really hope that you will go ahead and push this out and share it with your friends and your neighbors.
We want to say a special thank you to our sponsor, Atmos Energy. We also want to say a special thank you to all of our candidates who came out today to support the Chamber and also to support this forum. Remember, early voting starts on Monday, April 27th, and Election Day is on Saturday, May 9th. It's your voice, it's your vote. Make sure you use it.
And I'm running for Frisco City Council, Place 1. By now, it feels so nice to be before the chamber and before your faces. And it's really today, for me, a day of saying thank you for the forums that have been held and been presented and the opportunity to speak out. I moved to Frisco with my husband and my then one-year-old son in 2006. We had temporarily transferred to Connecticut, but I've been a Texan since 1989. Gotta say, I didn't think I'd really be a Texan, but life throws you different places, and I had the opportunity to go to work for Mrs. Ladenburg Johnson and Lucy Johnson at KLBJ Radio in Austin. And I'm both a pioneer and I'm an innovator. Can anybody take a guess at what this is? Probably not, right? An innovator took recycled flip-flops and created bracelets out of these. What Frisco needs to do, in addition to what we've already done in expanding population and expanding businesses, our small businesses, our medium-sized business, and large businesses, is we need to be an innovation center. The people that designed this simple product and sold it are innovators. I encourage and hope for the future and would promote that we need to be a place where more ideas come, where we bring more self-starters, where we encourage people to say, bring any idea you have to Frisco. And through the network of the Chamber, through what I hope to be, what we could have some startup-based initiatives for venture capital, that we can bring folks in, not just because it's a nice place to live or because we have the $5 billion mile, but because we have an opportunity to say we have great neighborhoods. We're building good parks. We're behind on our roads right now, and we need to catch up. We need to finish what we started. We need to grade the projects that we are attempting to finish, and they're complicated. Exide, which has kind of been interesting, we haven't talked about a lot during our candidate forums. People haven't asked a lot of questions. It's a complicated problem, and it requires a complicated solution. I'm confident that through our city staff, and through other partners in the effort, that we'll get there, that Grand Park will be built, and that we'll get Stewart Creek cleaned up. Those are priorities. But as our people come into town, we have just a tremendous resource of people that have expertise beyond what we can measure. And we need to invite those voices and those people not only into the business community, but into our schools, and then also into our lives and use those effectively. Thank you, Tony. I see the waving black folder.
Can I go? Okay. I'm Will Solomon for Frisco City Council, Place 3. I had the pleasure of running unopposed this year. So I know many of you, but for those that I don't, just a little bit of personal information about me. I've been in Frisco now for about 15 years. My wife and I, Bobby, we've been married for 28 years. We have 3 kids, 26, 16, and 12. We also have a 5-year-old granddaughter also that they both live in the area. You know, I'm not going to take 3 minutes. I really have 5 priorities for the next 3 years that I want to talk just real quickly about. The first is responsible development. As Frisco grows, we start to see pressure now and some friction as development starts to build out. And Councilmember Jeff Janey, who's in the audience today, one of the things he's talked about that I've plagiarized proudly is this concept of developing unique places. So destination dining, entertainment, retail, but also jobs, employers, and housing. That's what we need to focus on bringing to Frisco. A key part of that, and the second priority, is attracting a Fortune 100 company. Fortune 100 companies bring jobs. Jobs bring people. People bring the demand for these destinations that we want to create. Third is maintaining a low tax rate. Frisco has an exceptionally low tax rate. We need to continue to maintain that tax rate. That's a big part of the value proposition in Frisco. One of the reasons we're able to maintain such a low tax rate in Frisco, and this was really highlighted at last night's forum with some folks from Little Elm there, is we have so much taxes from our general fund that come from retail sales tax for people that don't live in Frisco. So 34% of the funds coming into the general fund today come through sales tax. 10 years ago, it was 17%. So that's property tax that we don't have to pay today. Number 4 is investing in infrastructure for growth. A lot of that's kind of what you see on the bond presentation. And then the last priority, something that we don't talk about probably near enough, is people. Everything that we have in Frisco today is because of great planning of someone in the past. So we need to continue to invest in people, but also in managing those relationships with those key stakeholders in the city, whether that's the chamber, whether that's faith-based organizations and nonprofits, whether that's the schools and the ISD itself. Lastly, I'd like to thank the chamber for putting this on, and if you want more information about me, Kathleen and Brian in the back, they're with Will, and they'll have some information for you also. Thank you.
Here we are. We're at the bottom of the hour. It's getting great. This is the third event we've had in 38 hours. So I'm going to thank the chamber as well. Introduce myself. My name is Bob Allen. Teresa is my wife, who could not be here today. She's with her 2 granddaughters. We've been married 37 years. We grew up in Ohio. We went to the same elementary school together. I married her when she was 5, and she's now 42. I spent 29 years at EDS, Electronic Data Systems, which I think was the most incredible place to work in the world. It's amazing to me that the company no longer exists, but that's where I learned everything about leadership and project management and financial reporting and all the things I think are important today. I spent the last almost 5 years working for the Frisco Independent School District, doing for Frisco ISD what I did for EDS, and that was applications management for businesses, business process reengineering for process savings, and I love working for the school district. We moved to Texas, first came to Texas in 1982, we moved to Frisco in 1992, so we've been here for 23 years. And all of you that live in Frisco came to Frisco for a reason, and I'm very proud to say that during those 23 years I have been totally invested in this community and have been a part of building that city that you all have come to know and love. I've been on the Frisco City Council, first elected in 2002. I've served 11 of the last 13 years on the Frisco EDC, or on the Frisco City Council. I've served 9 years on the Frisco Economic Development Corporation, where most of that time I was either chairman or vice chairman. So a lot of the business opportunities and a lot of the things that we have here today, I'm proud to have been a part of that. I served 7 years on the Frisco Education Foundation, most of that time as president or vice president of that foundation. I currently serve on the Samaritan Inn Board and the Samaritan Inn of Collin County. In my 23 years of being here, I have watched, worked with, admired, and learned from the last 4 mayors in this community: Bob Warren, Kathy C.I., Mike Simpson, Mayor Masso. I'm excited to tell you I have the endorsement of all of them in this race. Also, I've been supported by the Collin County Association of Realtors, because they know my first priority is always going to be Frisco, and that decisions I make will come without any regard to political implication or consequences. It's going to be about what is best for Frisco. And I think experience matters. I think experience is the way that you get things done in a city, a community. I will end with one comment. I have an incredible campaign team. They are awesome. But we need your help. We need you to come out. We need you to vote. We need you to volunteer to work, spend some time at the polls. It's not too late to give a sign at home in your yard, make an endorsement or a contribution. So thank you all for being here today, and thanks for the chamber for putting it on.
Again, if we could hold our applause for each of the questions. You have 1 minute for each of these. We hear a lot about taxes and accountability to the taxpayers. How can City Council specifically address issues like the state's proposed Senate Bill 182 dealing with property tax caps?
I mean, I'll start with that. 182 is a problem we don't need. Our state representatives, which it's amazing to me that we have state reps that we've elected, that I've endorsed, that are down there doing things I don't want them to do. I think as a community, we have got to be paying attention to what our representatives are doing, whether they be in state senate or state representatives, and asking them to listen to what we need and what works best for us. We need more local control. We do not need people in Austin any more than we need people in Washington telling us what to do or how to do it. You have a right to have a voice in what's happening to you as a municipality. If you don't like what your council's doing, you can replace your council. But when mandates are coming from the state to do things that really are not in our best interest, I think we need to get our representatives' attention and have them listen to us.
I guess SB 182 is bad for Frisco. I run a company and certainly understand the importance and the need for fiscal conservatism. And so just as an example, from the 2006 bond package, there have been $34 million of bonds in that package that we never sold. $34 million. The city of Frisco, in my view, what I think we should strive to do, Frisco is a fast growth city. So our budget generally should not increase more than the sum of growth plus inflation, which it doesn't, and it hasn't. A stat that I threw out last night, again, the folks that are in Austin that are pushing SB 182 talk about the fiscal irresponsibility of fast growth cities and the property tax related to those. One of the things that I would also, as a free market conservative, point to, the reason that you see tax revenues going up in Frisco is it's a market. It's a market-based economy. You buy homes. It's a huge investment for you. That home price goes up. That's an increase in that investment. I call that great. So I don't think we need SB 182 for cities like Frisco.
I'm going to sound like an echo, and I don't mean to, but the time that I was in Austin covering state government, it was a different day and age. Truly, the legislators cared about their communities, represented them well, and saw first the need to support their constituents. It's not that way anymore. We are fighting actively every session against a series of bills, including Senate Bill 182, that wants to take more away from us and to say that you're not smart enough, you don't know enough to run your own city, to be able to recruit the best businesses in town and to recruit the best people to, start businesses in town. We don't need any more local control taken away from us, and it's astounding that it's gotten to this place, and we have to fight with every bone of our body to get back local control.
Okay. What will it take for Frisco to have a complete street initiative? Streets that include dedicated bike lanes and safe pathways for pedestrians as well as motorized traffic.
It takes a vision, and it takes the concept of saying that sometimes there are other places that have done it first and are doing it great, and there's nothing wrong with copying a plan that's working on either coast or in a city like Columbus, Ohio, which gets a lot of attention. A city like Evansville, Indiana, that is comparably sized to us right now, that has an active river scene. We don't have a river, of course, but we've got a great lake next door to us. And so we need to look at where the opportunities are to learn. We don't have to create every idea. We can use and build from the resources in our community to say, how do we build it, what does it look like? And that is what we need to do. We need to be a lot more friendlier to bikers and to walkers, because we have a big problem with that right now.
The question fundamentally is, what's my position on dedicated bike lanes within the city of Frisco, which is kind of sounds like the crux of the question. Personally, with the information I have today, I'd say that's something I'm just not in favor of. I think it drives significant incremental cost into the city for the construction of streets. We already allow in Frisco, like many of the cities that neighbor us, cyclists to use the full lane. And certainly if you're around Frisco on any given Saturday morning, you generally see that there's a Peloton or two or three or four that are out there that are using the full lane. And I think that's great. So I don't know that we need a dedicated bike lane for that. Further, I would add, there's a lot for the cycling community already in Frisco. So whether outside of the full lane access, there's a community park that's pretty much dedicated to a different type of cycling than what you would do on a road today. But this is something that would not be on my list of priorities. Thank you very much.
And I would echo Will's comments as well. I do think that we have some laws and rules in the city that make a difference. But we're trying to build a city that we're trying to do the things that our citizens want us to do. And let's take Main Street here. And how many of you are actually members of the chamber? So you have Main Street out there. It's 2 lanes, 2-lane divided. I fought against that. I did not want those bump outs there. I wanted it to be 4 lanes through there. But the merchants up and down downtown insisted they had on-street parking, where I wanted to have parking behind. I think as a city, we've got to work through those kinds of issues, and we have to understand that citizens want different things at different times. I think there'd be a movement now to go out there and take those bump outs out and at least make it during rush hour parking, no parking there, and try to facilitate travel up and down through there. So if we're going to talk about streets, I think we ought to be talking about the whole thing holistically and looking at how we get some of the congestion taken out of the mix.
Okay. Do you support a plan for public transportation linking Frisco to the surrounding metroplex?
You will start? No. We have the EDC and CDC. That's where our money goes. DART, which is Plano and Richardson, some of those cities, that's where their 1% sales tax goes. Right now we're getting about $35 million a year in sales tax. Now, mass transit typically is a point-to-point solution. It's great if you live near where you're going to get on. It's great if you work where you're going to get off. But it is highly subsidized to the point of, in Plano, they have invested over $1.2 billion in DART. And they pay, subsidized for every rider, about $34 a rider every day. And that rider also rides back. So that's $68 a day Plano is paying for the riders. And the part I really love about this stat is 7,000 people ride that train a day. Only 6,000 of them are Plano citizens. Plano's paying $68 a day for non-citizens to ride the train. So, no, I'm not I'm not interested in doing anything along that line.
Webb?
The most common complaint I hear from residents of all new, just moving, thinking about moving, is the need for public transportation. I don't support the DART model. I don't think it works for Frisco, and I think it is a tremendous waste of money. But I think there are things that we can create such as our own train lines, and Bob's talked about that before, that we have access to our own train lines. We need to find a way to move people better. And we can do that by promoting in a more heavily suggested manner carpooling. I've come from cities where I've lived that have 1 million plus, 2 million plus people, and without carpooling and more access, we're heavily tolled around here. So we have not a lot of options about such things. But what I'm saying is we need to study carpooling. We need to study about how to get people to the airport so that they're not stuck on the tollway all the time trying to get to DFW and missing flights. We've got to address it. It's not going away, and if not, we're going to have more congestion than we have now.
I don't support Frisco joining DART. Bob outlined several of the reasons, economic reasons why. My favorite case study actually is Addison. So Addison has contributed over $200 million to DART. And they did that for the hopes of having a train that would connect Addison to downtown. So $200 million later, what do the residents of Addison have? Not a single thing. Not a single thing. So joining DART is no guarantee that you're going to get these things that are talked about. Two, I do believe we have an obligation to provide some type of transportation system that helps people that can't drive in Frisco. And we increasingly have a senior community here. We entered into agreement with TAPS last year that has done a great job in providing that. So that type of service I would support. And then lastly, I turned 50 last week. One of the things I've learned in my life is that technology is evolving fast. And by the time that if we did join DART, by the time we can get something here, it's likely that the technology of how we transport and drive is going to be highly different than what it is today. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to do one more city question, and then we'll do some more general questions for all of our candidates. As a chamber, we're working diligently on the Broadway power line issue to have the lines buried along Main Street or Stonebrook. What do you feel will be the impact to all of Frisco if the lines are not buried?
I stand as an intervener. It's very close to me. I'm within earshot. My son goes to school and will be directly impacted on Stonebrook Parkway if the lines are not buried. I thank the chamber, the city, the citizens that have become involved in this effort, and I wholeheartedly support burying the lines. If these lines are not buried, then I think we will have a direct economic impact on our city, much as the way Plano has had in its residential areas on houses that don't sell because they're close to the power lines. I think that we will have a tremendous health risk that we've seen in California and in other cities, because there's so little that is that the power companies will tell us about what the effects are. But we have independent studies that show that a 5-story high power line is not healthy, and it's not good for a unique community that we keep talking about. Thank you.
So I live as far away as you can get from the power lines, and I want to bury it. So I think clearly it's something that we need to pursue. The city is very involved with whether it be lobbyists, attorneys to help us do those things, and we welcome and love the support we're getting from the community. We think it's a multi-pronged approach, and we're very optimistic that something good is going to come out of that. If it doesn't, it's going to take years for that to fall out, and I think you'd see the city go to tremendous extremes to go back and continue to try to fight that process. So it'll have a devastating effect on our traffic. Main Street over on the west side of town, that's got to be expanded to 6-lane divided, and I think we've got to do all we can, and I appreciate what everybody in this room has done to try to make that happen.
So real quickly to answer the question, I think very directly, what would be the impact of Frisco? There's a couple of major infrastructural impacts. The planned widening of Main Street wouldn't be able to happen if the power lines ran down Main Street. There is a 36-inch water line that's planned to go down the median of Main Street. That wouldn't happen either. Do I think that any of that is going to happen? No. I think the power lines will get buried. But this is what's great about Frisco. When people talk about what makes Frisco great, it is this. It is the fact that we as a community faced an issue and everybody got involved. A lot of smart, talented people. Clint Bedsel is a big change agent for this. There were a lot of people that got involved and drove change and ensured that we were aligned as a community. The whole entire community, residents, elected officials, both locally and at the state level. So it is these type of issues and the involvement of the talented residents that really distinguish Frisco from so many other areas. Thank you.
Thank you. We have all of our all of our candidates to please come forward and kind of find in the front seats here. And then when we ask the questions, if you want to be the one that answers it, if you'll just stand and kind of face our audience, because we've kind of we're going to be crowded, but we'll just squeeze everybody in up here. You don't have to all answer the question. We will not have time for that, but we will kind of do a couple of popcorn questions to get us through quickly. You still have 1 minute to answer these questions.